and welcome to Nana's Crafty Home. My name is Tanya. Today's tutorial is going to show you how to complete the Christmas Blessing stocking that you can find as a free pattern on my website. You can see here that this is a good size stocking. The approximate finished size for the stocking is 10 inches wide at the base and approximately 12 total inches tall. This is really easy. Primarily done in single crochet for the main body of the stocking, and then this small section here of these bobble stitches that are crocheted to make this diamond design here on the main part of the stocking. Made in just two colors. This is a striking looking Christmas stocking. I'm also going to be showing you, if you've never worked cross stitch onto crochet before, I'm going to show you how to cross stitch a name onto the stocking as well. This single crochet, you might say, well, it looks a little different than single crochet to me. And the reason being is it is the back side of a single crochet, which gives it a more unique looking texture than the front side of a single crochet, which would be traditionally considered the right side of the stitch. But I'm using the back side, and I think that that gives it another unique look. So very simple, primarily single crochets, and of course I will show you how to do the bobble stitch, which is basically working 5 double crochets together while working single crochet rows, and that makes that double crochet together really pop out of the back of your work. So when we start the stocking, we'll be starting here at the bottom and working our way up. It is worked all in one piece. When we've completed the boot section, the foot section, we go ahead and turn it inside out and then start working the top part of our stocking from the inside. So the back side of the single crochet will be showing. The nice part of doing it that way is you have very little sewing to do, since this is all worked in one piece, working in the round. The only part that you will be sewing is this small section here. You can certainly choose not to personalize your stocking if you choose not to do the cross stitch. This would make a lovely stocking even without a name on it. You can do the name on the stocking at 2 different parts of the pattern. Once you complete the foot part, you could then go ahead and cross stitch the name on at that point, or go ahead and finish the stocking, leaving this section of the foot unsewn, and then you would use the opening here in order to have access to cross stitch the name on the front of the stocking. So you will need to complete the stocking a size K or a 6.5 millimeter crochet hook, and gauge is not terribly important with this project unless you want it to be the approximate finished size of my stocking. You could use a different weight yarn than I'm using. You could use a different size hook. Just know that your stocking will end up being a different size than mine. The yarn that I used for my pattern is the Loops and Threads brand Charisma, and I am going to be, for the tutorial, using the main color. Color A will be white, and then color B, and you won't need much of color B, is Forest. So you will use almost 1 full skein for the main part of your stocking, and then just a very small amount of your color B. And each of these skeins is 109 yards, and this is a super bulky, or actually just a bulky yarn 5. So if you're substituting a yarn, what I'm using is a bulky size 5 weight. So you will also need a stitch marker in order to mark your first stitch of each round as you go around, and you will need a tapestry needle as well to sew, weave in your ends, and also do the cross stitch on the front of your stocking. So let's go ahead and get started. To get started on our stocking, we're going to go ahead and chain 31 with color A, which is the color of the main body of our stocking. So go ahead and slip knot and get that yarn on your hook and chain 31. 1, 2, 1. We're going to single crochet in the second chain from the hook, and then we're going to place our stitch marker in that stitch that we've just made. And that is going to help us as we go from round to round to identify the first stitch of each round, which will make that easier for us. So we are going to be moving the stitch marker up and placing it in the first stitch of every round as we move through the stocking. Once we've done that, we're going to single crochet in every chain to the last chain. So go ahead and work a single crochet in every chain. And when we get to our last chain, we're going to work 3 single crochets in that last chain. I've reached the last chain. Go ahead and work 3 single crochets in that last chain. 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to be turning and we're going to be working down the bottom side of that chain, working in the unused loops of the chain. We're going to now work a single crochet in each unused loop to the last chain. So of course this chain here, this loop, we put 3 single crochets in that same chain here, so we're not going to be working another single crochet in it. So the next unused loop, we're going to work a single crochet and go ahead and work a single crochet all the way down in those unused loops until you get to the last chain. I've reached the end here. I'm in the last unused loop here of my chain. Go ahead and work 2 single crochets in that last loop. Now for this first round you will need 62 stitches to have the correct number here. So go ahead and count 62 stitches. With 62 stitches, we're going to go ahead and slip stitch to the top of that first stitch from the round. We're going to chain 1 and single crochet in that same stitch, and then move up that stitch marker into that stitch for this is the first stitch of round 2. We're going to go ahead and single crochet in the same stitch and then in each stitch around. So we've worked our first stitch, so just go ahead and work a single crochet in every stitch all the way around, and again at the end you will have 62 stitches. With 62 stitches at the end of round 2, we're going to again slip stitch to the first stitch of the round, chain 1 and single crochet in that same stitch and place a stitch marker in that first stitch. So for rounds 3 through 15, we're going to repeat that round that we just did, which is just a simple single crochet in every stitch around, slip stitching to the top of the first stitch, moving your stitch marker up for every round. After completing round 15, go ahead and do your slip stitch to the first stitch of the round, and now we're going to be doing a decrease round, and this is the final round of the bottom part of your stocking. So go ahead for round 16 and chain 1, single crochet in that same stitch, place your stitch marker back in that stitch. And now go ahead and single crochet in the next 28 stitches. So after crocheting the next 28 stitches, we're going to work 2 sets of single crochet decreases over the next 4 stitches. And a single crochet decrease is worked over 2 stitches. So you will insert your hook in the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, leave those 2 loops on your hook, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through all 3. That's your first single crochet decrease made. Now make your second one, same thing. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3. And now you will go ahead and single crochet in the remaining stitches of the round, and you will have a total number of 60 stitches at the end of round 16. So go ahead and complete those. So I've completed round 16, which is the bottom section of my stocking, and now it's time to begin work on the top portion of my stocking. In order to do that, before we begin, this has been the front side of our work, the front side of our single crochet, but for the rest of our boot, for the rest of our stocking, we're going to go ahead and work from the inside, and so we're going to be turning this inside out so that back side of the single crochet now becomes the right side of our stocking. So go ahead and turn that inside out and see how that just gives it a totally different appearance when we do that. So this is now going to be the right side of my stocking, and the back side of the single crochet for the rest of our stocking will be showing on the right side. So at this point, I kind of look at my stocking, and when you're working in the round with single crochet, you can have the seam a little bit go sideways. Here you can see, even though I'm working in that chain 1 single crochet in the same stitch, which does help some of that diagonal seam that you end up getting, and then I also crochet, I tighten that seam up really well when I'm working in it, and that chain 1 is really tight, and that first single crochet that I work, I try to make those as tight as possible so that it keeps that seam as straight as I can get it. But you may have a little bit of a meandering here, a little bit of a diagonal seam, so I evaluate that at this point. And since I do have a small bit of diagonal, I want to straighten my stocking back up. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to fasten off and leave that end tucked in there. I'll go through here and weave in ends. And that's the other thing. If you have any ends that need to be tucked in, they're easier to do as you're working your stocking if they're on the inside. So just a tip about that as you're working your stocking as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide which stitch looks like it's at the end of my stocking, which really, when I lay this flat, which is where's the seam? Where do I want my seam? So I'm going to go ahead and pick that stitch, and this will be my first stitch of the round. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to count over 19 stitches in both directions and placing a second stitch marker, because that's going to be the top portion of my stocking. So go ahead and count over 19. So this is going to be number 1 of my round. So this is where I'm going to attach my yarn and start for round 17. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. So place a stitch marker there, and then come back to your first stitch marker where your beginning of your round is going to be. Remember, we counted that one already, so we don't want to count it a second time. And we're going to count another 19 back. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. So now take your stitch marker that you had for the opposite side and put that through both sections of your stocking. All right. So this is going to be the top portion of your stocking. You're going to be working in rounds, going back and forth. You're going to be skipping these stitches on the end of your stocking here, and we're going to come back later and sew that. I'm going to leave that open now so that I can come back and do my cross stitch. But this may also be a time where if it's easier for you and you're going to be doing a cross stitch personalization on the front of your stocking, this is going to be when you may want to do that, as your stocking is completely open and it's a lot easier to get your hand in there and do your cross stitch. Just look at your stocking to see which side your bobble stitch is going to be and where your cross stitch is going to end up being. So looking at your stocking, if I'm starting the round here and I'm going to be working around in this direction now, so when I attach my yarn, I'm going to be working from the inside. So the back side of my single crochet is now going to be on the right side, on the outside of the stocking. I'm going to be working in this direction going around. And the bobbles are on the front side of the stocking, which will be on this side. So I'm working from the back, coming around, and then the bobble is worked at the end of the round. So you have the majority of your stocking top, as I'm doing these rounds, are coming around this direction. Bobble is done here in the middle of the front of the stocking, and then I'm finishing my round. So my cross stitch would want to be on this side of the stocking. So just look at that and make sure that you're doing your cross stitch on the correct side of where your bobble decoration is going to be. You don't want those on opposite sides. So when you're ready to go ahead and get started, you're going to attach your yarn at the beginning of that round where your seam is going to be, and we will begin round 17. For round 17, we're going to go ahead and start working from the inside of our stocking now. And we want to attach, if we've adjusted our seam, and we want to make sure and attach to that first stitch that we've marked. And what we're going to do now for round 17 is attach, chain 1, and single crochet in that same stitch. We're going to move our stitch marker up. And single crochet in the next 18 stitches. So 1 and 18 will be in that stitch that we've marked. So go ahead and single crochet in that. And now we're going to be turning, leaving these stitches unworked for the top section of the stocking. We're going to leave those unworked, and we're going to now work along the opposite side between those stitch markers. So you're going to place your next single crochet in the same stitch on the other side where you've placed your stitch marker. So single crochet there, and now you're going to place a single crochet in the rest of those stitches along the other side of the stocking, and so that will be an additional 18. Once we've worked those 18 stitches to the end of that, we're going to have a total of 38 stitches for this round. So go ahead and work your single crochets for the rest of this round. Once we've gotten to the end of the round, we've counted, we have 38 stitches. We will slip stitch to that first single crochet of the round. And we are going to begin row 18 by chaining 1, single crochet in that same stitch, moving up our stitch marker, single crochet in the next 27 stitches. So 1, 2, 3. After completing those 27 stitches, a total of 28 stitches, including our first one, we're ready to work our first bobble stitch. So a bobble is a double crochet 5 together. Basically, it's working 5 incomplete double crochets, and by working in the single crochet round and then those double crochet incomplete bobble stitches, that will create this pop on the back side of our work, which makes that bobble. So in order to do that, you're going to yarn over, you're going to insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. So we've completed 1 incomplete double crochet, and we're going to repeat that by yarning over, inserting our hook into the same stitch, yarning over and pulling up a loop, yarning over and pulling through 2. So we've done 2 incomplete double crochets, yarn over, insert our hook into the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. That's 3. Yarn over, insert our hook into the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. That's 4. Yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. So I have done 5 incomplete double crochets up to the last step. I'm going to now pull through all 6 loops on our hook. So you can see here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to pull through all 6 at the same time. Now I'm going to be working a single crochet in the rest of the stitches of this round. But it's important that when you're working that next single crochet after you've done your bobble stitch, you want to work that single crochet pretty tightly, because the tighter that you get that stitch, the more your bobble is going to pop on the back side. So do your next single crochet and see what happens here on the back side. That has really popped out that stitch, creating that awesome texture and great bobble. So now for the rest of the round, go ahead and work another 8 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're going to again have 38 stitches for this round. We will slip stitch to the first stitch of the round. So I've just completed round 18, and I'm going to work my slip stitch into that first stitch from the round, chain 1, single crochet in that same stitch, move our stitch marker up, and basically what you're going to be doing is a round of single crochets in between each round of bobble rows. So after every round of bobbles that you do, you're going to do 1 round of single crochets in between. So for round 19, it's simply a chain 1, single crochet in the same stitch, single crochet in each stitch around with a slip stitch to the first stitch, and we will again have 38 stitches. So go ahead and complete that. So to start out round 20, we want to chain 1 and single crochet in the same stitch, moving up our stitch marker again. and we have another row of bobbles. So go ahead and single crochet in the next 26 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. After completing those 26 stitches, we're going to work another bobble in the next stitch. So again, that's 5 incomplete double crochets in the same stitch. So there's 5. Yarn over and pull through all the loops. Now single crochet in the next stitch. And I'm going to repeat that one more time. Bobble in the next. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yarn over and pull through all the loops, and then work a single crochet after that and work it tightly. Now single crochet in the rest of the stitches. You will single crochet in 7 more stitches here to the end. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So to complete the round, slip stitch, and I'm going to repeat that single crochet round. So chain 1, single crochet in the same stitch, and single crochet in each stitch around. And being careful to count at the end of your rounds, because we work those single crochets really tightly after those bobble stitches, especially in between bobbles. It's easy to miss those stitches. So make sure that at the end of each round of single crochets, you're counting to make sure that you end up with 38 stitches. So go ahead and complete that, and we will have another round of bobbles. After completing round 21, which was just simply single crochet round, we're ready to work on round 22, which will be another bobble round. So go ahead and do your slip stitch. Chain 1, single crochet in that same stitch. And now we're going to go ahead and single crochet in the next 25. 1, 2, 3. After those 25 stitches, I'm going to work a bobble in the next. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Complete the bobble, single crochet in the next tightly, and I'm going to repeat that 2 more times. Bobble in the next. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single crochet in the next, bobble in the next. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, single crochet in the next, and then single crochet in the rest of the stitches of that round, which is another 6 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You will have a total of 38 stitches again after the end of that round. And you can see how that bobble is really starting to take shape. This is, of course, the diamond is going to be getting larger until we get to the middle. Our next bobble round will be our middle and largest bobble round with 4 bobbles, and then we will start decreasing our bobbles after that and repeating these rows again. So go ahead and count your stitches, make sure you have 38, and then we will be doing a round of single crochet around that next round. All right, so for round 23, we did our chain 1 and a single crochet in that first stitch, and now just go ahead and work a single crochet in every stitch around. All right, so for round 24, I'm going to go ahead and chain 1, single crochet in the same stitch, and move up my stitch marker again. Single crochet in the next 24 stitches. So 1, 2. We're going to now go ahead and do a bobble stitch in the next. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Single crochet in the next. And repeat that 3 more times. So bobble in the next. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Single crochet in the next. Bobble in the next stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bobble in the next. And then one more time. Bobble here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Single crochet in the next. And now we will single crochet in the remaining stitches of the round. So that will be the next 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for a total of 38. You can see here that is really lovely, the way that those pop out like that. So that was my row with the largest number of bobbles. So now we're going to begin decreasing and repeating rounds. So we'll repeat this round, then this round, then this round to get us that diamond shape. So they will start decreasing as we go up. And for our next round, we will repeat our single crochet round. So go ahead and slip stitch, chain 1, single crochet in every stitch around. All right, so I've completed that round of just single crochets, and now we're going to begin decreasing our bobble rounds. So for this next round, which is a repeat of round 22, this will be the bobble round with 3 bobbles in it. So go ahead and repeat that next round with 3 bobbles, and that is simply by chaining 1, single crochet in the same stitch, then single crocheting in the next 25, working your pattern of 3 bobbles with the single crochet in between, and then single crocheting the rest of the round. Then go ahead and do your next round of just single crochets, and when I come back, I will talk about the next round. After completing that round of single crochets, I'm going to go ahead and do another bobble round, and this is going to be a repeat of round 20, and this is the round where we do 2 bobbles. So for this one, we're going to single crochet in the next 26 after doing our first single crochet, then work your 2 bobble sequence, and then single crochet to the end of the round, slip stitch, and the next round will be a repeat of single crochets. Now for our last round of bobbles. This is going to be a repeat of the 1 bobble round. So go ahead and chain 1, single crochet in the same stitch. And this is a repeat of round 18. So single crochet in the next 27. You'll work your last bobble in the next stitch. Single crochet in the next stitch, and then single crochet in the next 9. 1, 2, 3, 4. After round 30, you're going to have your diamond shape as you can see it here. And now I'm going to be doing 8 rows of just single crochet, which is going to be the top part of my stocking. No more bobbles left to do. When I come back, we will do the top edging of our stocking. So go ahead and do 8 rows of single crochet. Once we finished our rounds of single crochet, we're going to go ahead and fasten off color A and bring in color B. This is also another time, if your seam has wandered a little bit from the end of your stocking, to go ahead and attach your yarn where you feel that would be. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and lay it flat, and then make this the first stitch of the round. Place my stitch marker, and we're going to bring in color B. And basically what we're going to do now is we're going to work the rest of the top of our stocking from the outside. So we're going to be working single crochets again, but we're going to be going in the opposite direction, working from the right side of our stocking. We will not be working on the inside, going in this direction as we were before. I'm going to go ahead and attach my yarn. And do a single crochet. And now that is the first stitch of my round, and the rest of the stocking is simply a single crochet round every round, and you're going to complete 4 rounds of single crochet working from the right side of your stocking. And once you're complete with those 4 rounds of single crochet going around your stocking, you will fasten off color B, and when I come back, I will show you how to complete your stocking's personalization with my cross stitch. So after we finished those rounds of single crochet at the top portion of your stocking, before we do the cross stitch, to finish off your stocking, you're going to just make a very simple loop. So once you've done your slip stitch to the top of your first stitch, you can go ahead and remove that stitch marker as we won't need it any longer. Go ahead and chain 1, and then we're going to single crochet in the same stitch. Chain 5, single crochet in the same stitch. So that's just a very simple loop for your stocking. Now you can go ahead and fasten that off. And weave in that end. So now we're ready to begin the cross stitch portion of our stocking. And I'm going to be putting Papa on my stocking. I have created a graph. I went to a website called stitchfiddle.com, and you can create your own graphs for cross stitch using that service, and it is free for their standard, no upgrades. You can use the service for free. So what I did is I went on there and created this graph with the number of rows and the number of stitches over for the front of my stocking. So essentially the boot portion, the bottom portion of my stocking, this rectangle piece here, is 16 rows high and 31 stitches across total. So I knew what name I wanted to put on here, and I went ahead and counted out those stitches on my graph. I left one blank stitch, one blank box in between, so there's a little bit of spacing. And then I counted how many boxes or how many stitches the whole name is going to use across my stocking. So for Papa, here you can see that it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 boxes, 9 stitches tall. That is my tallest letter. So I subtracted 9 from 16, which gave me a total of 7 blank boxes. So I went ahead, that is an uneven number, of course, but I went ahead and started the bottom portion of my first letter 4 boxes up, which gives me 3 blanks, and then 4 blanks at the top. So that was my 7 blank stitches, because you want this to be as evenly spaced across your stocking as possible. I counted how many letters total this would take. Total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. So with 25 total boxes being used up for the name, with 31 boxes across, that leaves 6. So I will have 6 blank or empty spaces. So that is an even number, so I knew I wanted 3 blank spaces on the front side of Papa and 3 blank spaces on the other side of the name as well. So it was easy to space that out. And then, so when we're looking at our graph and we're looking at our stocking, each single crochet stitch is a box. So each box represents 1 single crochet stitch on our stocking. So when we're using our graph to replicate that onto our stocking, we're going to count stitches and rows to match what our graph shows. So since we know we're going to be starting on a stitch number 4 up and 4 across, we would come to our stocking and we would start working on row 4. So row 4 is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 4 approximate stitches over from the side. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to be wanting to start right here for our first letter. So you want to begin by cutting a nice long section of your color B, which is what we're going to be using to do the cross stitch. And you're going to want to get your tapestry needle. And your tapestry needle that you're going to want to use is going to be blunt with an eye large enough to get your yarn through easily. You don't want this too sharp because then you may have a tendency of splitting your stitches, and you're wanting to go in those gaps between the stitches. You don't want to be going in the middle of a stitch. So if you have a nice blunt needle, it will be easier to do the cross stitch. So you're going to be working in this gap. If you had gone ahead and just stopped, this would be easier instead of doing the top portion, but I wanted to show you that you could do it here as well. So you're going to be reaching your hand in and working from the inside of your stocking here to work your cross stitch. If you've never done cross stitch before, of any kind, cross stitches are basically 2 diagonal bars that make a cross, an X, onto fabric or yarn stitches in this situation. There are 2 methods of cross stitch that are generally used by most people. One is the English method and one is the Danish method. I'm going to be using the English method, but you could certainly choose to use the Danish if you so chose. In the English method, you work each stitch individually. In the Danish, you go along and you work all of your 1 bar for each stitch all the way across your row, and then you come back and you work the 2nd bar over top of the ones that you just worked to make the 2nd bar of each cross. But I'm going to go ahead and make each cross stitch an individual stitch and finish each one individually before going on to the next one. The other important thing to note about cross stitch is you want your top bar to be going in the same direction for all of your stitches. That gives some uniformity to the stitches. It helps when the light is shining onto it to give it a better appearance. It's much more professional looking than if the bars are kind of haphazard. So that's a good practice for you if you are just new to cross stitch, to develop the habit of working that 2nd diagonal in the same direction for every one of your stitches. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, we're wanting to come up 4 rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and we want to come over 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is the stitch we want to work around right here. So I'm going to mark that, hold it so I know what I'm doing, and I'm going to reach in and I'm going to work in the gap right here. So you can see there's these gaps between each of the single crochet stitches. I'm going to be working in these gaps around that stitch. So go ahead and pull your yarn through. You want to make sure that you leave enough of an end on the back side so that you can tuck that end in and make it invisible later. And then you're going to go ahead and work your first bar by coming across diagonally into that gap and pushing your needle down, and that's going to create your first bar of your first stitch. So then we're going to come and make the 2nd bar, and that 2nd bar is going to come up over top. So I'm going to go around that stitch, come on the other side, and pull up my needle. Don't tug too tightly. You don't want this to be making your work bunched. And then you're going to come and finish that second diagonal, that second bar, by going across that stitch on the opposite side and putting your needle down. And then just pull gently to finish that bar. So our first cross stitch has been made here. You can see this is a nice X. It is worked around that single crochet very nicely, and each of your stitches are going to be worked in the same fashion. So you're going to follow your graph. You can see I have one directly above that one, so I'm going to go ahead and work that next one. So for that second stitch that we are going to make, we want it directly above the previous one that we just made. However, we're going to be using the same gaps that we just used for the top portion. We don't really want to have gaps in between our cross stitches, so we want them to be touching. So we're going to be using these same gaps that I just used. However, if I come back up in the same space that I just went down, I'm just going to unmake the stitch that I just made. So I'm going to come up one and work from the top portion of that cross stitch down. And remember, we want our top bar to be going in the same direction and across in the same way as all of our stitches. So just be careful of that as well. So I'm going to come up here to the top portion of our cross stitch, and then I'm going to go down in the same gap as the top portion of the cross stitch from the first one that I made here. So that same gap right there. Then I'm going to go ahead and come into the gap here at the top portion of my previous one and have this diagonal bar going the same direction as the previous cross stitch that I made. And I'm just going to continue working that same, following my graph. So I'll come up here to start my next cross stitch, up one stitch in the gap. Coming back down, the same place I just went down. Come back up on the right side of that stitch. Don't tug too hard, and then down across to make your next diagonal bar. So you can see that this P is starting to take shape. There aren't gaps in between each one of the cross stitches. I am using the same stitches to come up and down at the top and the bottom. My second diagonal is going in the same direction as all of my stitches, so they will look uniform and professional. And I will just continue making these stitches. This is working on number 4 here. My first P is going to be 9 stitches tall. So I'm going to continue in the same manner for all 9 stitches up. So you can see here I've completed the 9 stitches going up for that first capital P that I'm using for my name. And now I'm going to start coming over. You can see in my chart here that I'm going to have 4 more stitches going across for the top portion of that P. So really all you're doing is just continuing on next to that stitch, coming up through the gaps, going down, making sure that your bars are going across diagonally in the same direction. Not pulling too tightly. Just making that snug. All right, so I've completed that top part of the P. Now looking at my chart, you can see that one right next to it is blank, and then that bar here is 1 over from where I ended and 1 down. So this would be that blank stitch, and so I'm going to come 1 down and do the next stitch. And you can see how that's beginning to take shape as I'm working through that name. So go ahead and continue working your P. When you've completed your P, of course you'll remember we have 1 blank in between each letter of the name that we're putting on here. So we'll have 1 blank space before we start the A. But go ahead and just work through your cross stitch, and when I come back, I will show you how to sew the top portion of your stocking. So you can see I finished my cross stitch name across my stocking, and now I'm going to go ahead and sew the top of the boot portion shut. So we're going to turn our stocking inside out. Get a length of our color A, the color that matches our main body of our stocking. And we're simply just going to whip the sides of this together. So just start up here at the top, and we're going to pick up the loops of that top row there, leave a length to weave in, and just continue on down, just whipping those sides together. Just a very simple stitch. So just continue that on down till you have sewn the entire top portion of the boot shut. Weave in your ends and you will have completed your stocking. So there you have it. Your Christmas blessing stocking is completed, ready to hang up on your fireplace mantle, perfect for your holiday decor this year. Thank you so much for joining me here today at Nana's Crafty Home. I hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial. If you like my video tutorials, please remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you'll get notified when I post a new video. Also, you can find my free patterns at nanascraftyhome.com. You can also follow me on social media at Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, and Instagram. Remember to hashtag your items if you make any of my patterns with hashtag nanascraftyhome. Thanks so much again for being with me today. Have a great day, everyone. See you soon. Bye-bye.